Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I would like to discuss about the commercial aviation of today and tomorrow. In the last 100 years or so, we have seen how moving from point A to point B always been characterized by the type of infrastructures that each country has available. As we want to increase our distances and shorten our travel time, the plane has always been the best available solution. What has come today to analysis is the fact that still the commercial aviation of today is still somehow limping, or is still sort of like focusing to understand where can it go in the next years. We've seen mistakes of the past where the consideration that fuel costs were always being cheap, and the fact that the problem of the CO2 and greenhouse effect were never top of the priority for airline companies. How can aviation improve? How can aviation improve itself? What are the options of tomorrow? What are the options for the commercial aviation of the 2.0? So what can we see in the next, let's say, 20 to 30 years from now? In the past, we had the dream that we will fly from point A to point B in the shortest amount possible. And if you guys remember when we had the Concorde that was servicing across the Atlantic Ocean, usually from London or Paris to New York, and a short-lived route from Texas to New York. Between the end of the 60s and throughout all the way to the 90s, we have seen that the possibility of flying faster than the speed of sound were actually feasible. But the commute was only for the wealthy. In fact, it wasn't available for everybody to fly from London to New York in 3 to 4 hours with a Concorde. Plane ticket was thousands of pounds. Was just a first-class jet airliner. So after so many years of this fantasy, well, everybody thought that eventually the shape of the airplane and the performance will come faster and faster. It sort of hit like a dead end. We've seen that the cost of airlines, which is the fuel, the consumption, and availability of cheap prices has always been the number one priority. So we have now a situation where we would like to fly towards new destination. New routes are opening. However, the political impact of certain countries has reduced the availability to airlines to sort of like continue services in countries, for example, Northern Africa. However, recently Air France flew back to Iran for a direct flight from Paris to Iran. Now, what we have now is one other consideration we can do is should we continue to hope and embrace for like a future where supersonic flights will come back? Should we embrace the fact that the current speed of airlines, the current method of constructing airplanes can actually board way more passengers than it did in the past is the solution? So what is it? Faster planes with fewer passengers or slower planes with higher seating volumes? For now, the formula of higher seating volumes is working. We have Airbus, the French airplane maker, that developed the Airbus 380. We all know the famous double-decker that has been very successful despite its rocky beginning with many technical issues. Many orders came from Middle East, from Saudi Arabia to Qatar, Malaysian Airlines of course too. And we have now a new way of traveling, a new way of understanding that moving from point A from point B, it's not only flying the old way, sitting and just waiting to be boarded. Planes like the Airbus 380 started to reshape the concept of flying. So when you do board a plane that can virtually have seats for 700 or even more passengers according to its configuration. So we see now how it is possible to reshape and to rethink a new whole experience when flying. Up until now, we have the classic airline that has hundreds of passengers waiting for the flight, strapped to the seat. It's not a pleasant experience. And now, thankfully, onboard entertainment is becoming a standard for certain routes. whereas before was just only for long flights across the oceans or across over large continents that we had luxury of watching movies. And before, we also had radios. Now we have a full screen laying in front of us, on the passenger seats in front of us, and the entertainment has changed luckily, so you don't have to carry every time a book or your portable DVD player like we did until a few years ago. The reshape of the experience of the flight for long routes can now be seen as something positive. The old concept, while we had passengers sitting for 5 to 10 hours or even more, flying from point A from point B, and has become sort of like a redundant thing to do. We have to understand that when we are passengers, we are on board. We have to go on a great extent of hours where we cannot do anything, just by sitting and staring in front of us. But luckily, then again, we can have luxury of watching movies. If you brought your book with you, that's great. However, airlines cannot have passengers strapped to the seats for hours and hours, and expect them to be happy and satisfied. Already we've seen that your legs, you have no room to stretch them whatsoever, and if you want to get up, you get up in an environment where you're flying probably an old airliner 20 years old that has no available room for you to stretch. You can go to the washroom, you can just walk along, but then you never know, there's always a flight attendant that need to do their thing, so going around with their food cart, the beverage cart. So it becomes tiresome. It becomes tiresome to just spend all this time sitting and not do anything. The concept of flying in itself, it has always been recognized as one of the greatest achievements in human technology. It's something that has been a milestone in human technology, in society. How can we go ahead? How can we improve this? 20-30 years ago, large airplanes manufactured by Boeing or Airbus that required 4 engines to haul something like 200, 300, 400 passengers can all be done with the power of 2 large jet engines. But there's still more into capacity, but even for like longer routes. And we have great technological achievements that have helped to shape the airline industry. Now, going back and thinking that is the formula of taking passengers on a steady cruising speed versus going faster the speed of sound, or can both of the things come together? Probably. I remember a few years ago, I think it was 2008, 2009, there was a great article that came out throughout the news, especially the internet. There was the Finnair, the Finnish airline, that published the vision of the future for the airline. So there was like a few renderings of how feasible were the planes of 2050 or 2090, something along those lines. So in the next 60-70 years, transportation will be probably faster with more frequent routes, or then again, larger aircraft that will be standard to carry at least 800 to over 1,000 passengers, and the shape of the aircraft will be sort of like a saucer or something like a very, very large airplane that can carry even more than 1,000 or 1,200 passengers. And the whole thing about carrying more passengers, it's not only the ability to store passengers, but to make them feel comfortable. We want the experience of flying to be something pleasant. Already when you go to the airport and you have to take a flight, the stress begins at home or the day before, even a week ahead. You know that security is very slow, is tedious, especially in North America. You want to fly comfortably. So when you go to the airport and you are there and you want to make sure that everything is smooth, you have to always go there hours and hours ahead. So you have to take the whole day just to make it on time. And once you go there, make sure that you remove belts and shoes, that you don't have any coins left in your pockets, no change allowed, no metal object, everything. It becomes an endeavor of stress for the passengers, and nothing has been done to make it a little bit, this experience a little bit easier. Nothing has been done. Actually, if you see how lines and the queues that runs in North American airport, the way have been done, they are very, very tedious. Especially in the US, where we have a TSA that it's not making things easy. the Transport Security Agency, if I'm not mistaken, that's the name, that has been around since after September 11. So yes, security is always a top concern, of course. However, it's how you lay out the plan for security. You can't have security and sort of like give up the ability for people to enjoy their flights. You can ask many people that have little or no inclination to fly that they rather rent a car and cross border from Canada to the US or vice versa, or rather take a train a day earlier, enjoy the ride, and reach a destination well rested without without thinking about, you know, like, do I make it on time? Is security taking forever to board me? And how many people lost their flight because of those low security lines? Now, the overzealousness in security has always been one of the guilty party and not allowing people to make it through the line in time. Airport design is also to blame for. If you've been around between capital cities around the world, you've noticed how different architecture and design is. Nowadays, we have architects and designers that place the wrong emphasis on the design and the aspect of the airport. The beauty seems to be their top priority, which it's understandable. You want the airport that you land to impress the passengers, the crowd, and the city the airport is located with. However, you can't sacrifice too much the ability for the airport to work systematically the way it's supposed to be. You can't have an airport that is basically running on the premise that it's a pretty place to stay. Yes, it does help to be into a pretty place, but if it's not functional, if it's not practical, it's defeat the purpose. I personally remember when I had to take a flight to go to New York from Toronto, and reaching the gates, I missed the flight because the public transportation happened to be very slow that day. I get to have my ticket rescheduled at a later time, 2 hours from when I was there at the airport. This was in the morning, and of course I had to pay for the extra fee for the rescheduling on my ticket. So comes to the time when I have to reach the gate. There is, at present, the new terminal is beautiful, but in some areas there's a lack of distinct feature to help passengers find their flight, especially when it becomes like a labyrinth where you board areas where you're supposed to change your flight. It compromises too many areas that are left empty, they're not functional, and they're not useful. It has been like this for years, probably on the premise that in the future the airline will rent more spaces in the airport, will expand their operation. But as of now, I felt a bit confused. I almost risked to lose my second flight. Likely, I met a worker there, this nice lady who helped me out, who she called through her cell phone the gate and asked to wait for me. And what the issue was that the gate that was renewed was announced on the monitors, so there was still the old gate. So I run frankly to reach the old gate, and there was nothing. And when I approached that branch of the gate, it was nobody there. There was nobody. It was empty. I thought to myself, okay, now I'm going to lose my second flight. So I made the flight and arrived to I think it was LaGuardia, and totally different experience. A very cramped and old airport. Nevertheless, I think that the ability to build a more functional airport ought to be the priority. Passengers made up the flight, made up the revenues for airlines to continue the operation. And when you have to embark into a journey, you don't know if you're going to make it on time. You don't know what are the risks at the airport that are going to come up as a surprise. Security, queue lines, special checks at the metal detector gate, and so on. I remember I was pulled out for a random search. They swapped this stick on my belt, on my hands, to see if I touched some sort of substance. I don't know what he was speaking about. But everything was nice, but it adds up to an extra 5 minutes there and 5 minutes there. So special check here, special check over there, and then again you start collecting minutes upon minutes of delay to arriving to the check-in and to embark your plane. Now, how can this be resolved? In my opinion, we have to think that the structure of the airport has to be a simple experience. It doesn't have to be going from point A to point B and zigzag through all the airport, and not have the ability to have passenger moving from one gate to destination to the baggage department in the fastest way as possible. We have to draw the line of going from A to point B as straight as possible. Walking with baggages, not being able to take certain shortcuts through the airport are not making your life easier. So then again, designing a better infrastructures and making sure that passengers go to destination the fastest way as possible, how to be the priority. And I'm sure that many of you went through big airports and noticed how many areas of the buildings were empty. They were unused. So you always wonder what does happen here. Are there any flights taking place to the day? Are we the only one? And according how the renting of the gates happens, we have different placement of planes throughout the whole airport structure. Going back to what we can expect from the transportation from the airline industry. The experience on board ought to be the second portion of your flight. We said before, okay, we have to make it on time. We have to make sure that passengers do not get stressed while approaching the airport and the security lines. Second, let's make their flight more pleasant. Why we do that is let's build airplanes with better interiors, with a better design. Let's provide them with the ability to walk around. So the challenge for engineers, the challenge for keeping costs down, but at the same time compromise with better solution to ensure passengers they have a pleasant flight, is to truly understand that the plane is not a structure that you can load people in and you just deliver them as if they were like crates or boxes or containers. So the ability for people to walk around, be able to stretch their leg, to just not be seated, strapped with their belt on, ought to be a bit of a priority in my opinion. Now, some airlines, like we mentioned before, that have the ability to purchase this double decker, the Airbus 380, have small boutiques on board, have the bars, and if you can really afford, if you're that wealthy, you can just buy a full first class ticket that has sort of your small cabin where you can have the most exclusive interiors. You have your little cabin as a most of it were the ride into the Orient Express. And you have all your privacy. You have the luxury of turning your seat into a full-size bed. So it's nice if you're sharing your space with the person that you love, and you take this opportunity to enjoy a long flight in the total comfort of your own cabin. You also have your own private bathroom as well with a shower. So compared to the old concept of the airline that you just sit and wait to be disembarked, Airbus has taken the longer route to deliver something that it's truly gorgeous and amazing, and hopefully can lead other companies and other competitors like Boeing to do the same or even better. Think that a pleasant flight for passengers means that a positive rating for the airline, which is basically what we want now. As we progress, as we go further through year to year, we see the competition to have the cheapest route with the best ability, the best service is always raging on. So airlines will have to continue to offer good products if they do truly make the flight for the passengers as less stressful as possible. I mean, who does want to go on vacation and the first day that your first holiday you're already stressed? If we consider the future of the airlines, if we want to see a truly progressive approach, we should take a look at the roughly 100 years ago, when a flight was taking shape, when also not only wings were flying in the air, but the invention of the blimp and the slow cruise in the sky. There have been plans in the past 10-15 years to revive the blimp. So the blimp has it's been used today, but only for promotional commercial purposes. Sometimes you see that Goodyear blimp over some sports events. And think about something like that, way bigger, way more technological and advanced, that can have hundreds of people on board. It will be the cruise in the sky. The blimps of the future can now have the ability to truly reshape the aviation industry, regenerating a new traveling experience, like we said before, in the past. So it would be the cruising in the sky where passengers fly across continents, across the Atlantic, or they go from one city in Europe all the way to the east or to the south. Basically, flying across the continent by enjoying, the sceneries. So picture cabins and decks that have wide windows where people can truly see the land and the oceans as they slowly make it through the destination. So we have nowadays crews that go from capitals in Europe through Asia, through Africa, through South America, from North America to northern Canada, and it's the same thing. So hopefully the blimps of the future can bring the whole new aspect of the into the airline world. So a cruise in the sky, and there have been several proposals. For example, I was checking an article on the Telegraph. It's called the Halo, the $330 million airship for the future. What it features is a ballroom, open air viewing deck, and space for yacht and helicopter. So yes, you can use it for if you, rather than have your yacht sitting at the dock, you can have a blimp. It will make you sort of look like a James Bond villain, but it'll be truly amazing if things like this start staying in the sky. We also have the ability to have a cargo deck where you can provide additional space on board for everything that you want to fly around. There is the technology to continue the legacy of the blimps, to take them back to the old glory. New technologies can improve the safety of the blimp of the future, and it also will be a totally new way of traveling. So you don't have to think about, it's the destination. No, but more the journey will be that it will be more peculiar. So you're traveling across the globe without even landing, unless you go to your destination slowly, and you can really enjoy the new picture from your window. The blimp of the future can also generate a whole new industry. Regenerate, we have to say. These things happened and was used all the way until the Hindenburg incident 75 years ago. But before World War II, it was used to fly across Europe, people, and throughout the Western world. Now, going back to the airport and the ability to fly even faster, there are several other options beside the blimp of the future to allow airlines to continue to reshape their own ability to survive their high fuel costs. We have the industry nowadays that can clearly generate more positive results. For example, new synthetic fuels or the biofuels, new jet fuels. I found a very interesting entry in Wikipedia that speaks about biofuel for commercial aviation. And what are the factors that are shaping the commercial aviation? So number one are the fuel costs, the ability for airlines to find a cheaper and a more environmentally sustainable type of fuel. Aviation biofuel also can, that's the name, can also help the reduction in consumption and the emission of CO2. So there are two entries for this type of alternative. One is the bio SPK. Basically, it involves a few oil reuse, some oils and plants extracts like eutropha, some algae, tallows, and other waste oil, and babasu and camelina to produce this bio SPK, which means that it's a bio-derived synthetic paraffinic kerosene. And the other one is the FT SPK, which basically it's the second option that involves processing solid biomass using pyrolysis to produce pyrolysis oil, or gasification to produce synthetic gas, syngas, which is then processed into FTSPK, Fischer-Tropsch synthetic paraffin kerosene. I don't know if these things are a viable solution, but there's been many studies in the last years. NASA for sure. I even remember Virgin Atlantic that experimented with oil coming from the coconut tree plant that was tested on one engine during a live flight with passengers, and it was successful. What would be for the first part? What would be the future of the airline? Would be the constructions of new terminals and new abilities to reach a new destination that were always being snubbed in the past. Also, the ability to reintegrate short routes to fly people across the nation, within the same border. If you take a look at some notions of when aviation was peak of its existence, and if you take a look how the waterplanes were highly used to fly across cities, for example, In Europe, in Italy, there was like a big water plane routing system that will link passengers from Venice, then fly them over to Rome, and then off to the south of Italy or back to Milan. Milan had like a huge artificial lake where the plane could land, and then people could be disembarked and reach the northern capital. And now the beauty of the airline lost its fashion throughout the last 40 years. The golden years of aviation are over. Times do change, technology do change, and social aspect, political aspect, and financial aspect helped shape the airline to what it is right now. Of course, we can't forget the terrible event of September 11 in New York and what happened right there. That was a major chapter in the aviation life, of course, in everybody's life. The blimp of the future is one alternative solution. The blimp of the future can also be considered for like commercial use. Beside passengers, it can become the new heavy lifter of the sky. We ought to consider that the environment is changing, and I want to just highlight this bit of a thing before we end this episode. If you know northern Canada, there are certain areas where ice roads that are open throughout the winter season for up to 3 months, where trucks can deliver goods to remote part of the nation, while there are communities that thrive and live upon these ice roads. With the fact that the planet is getting warmer and warmer, there's ice routes where trucks go. Now, don't last for the whole winter. Well, they barely last 3 months now. They think they last for 30 days out of the whole year. And it is a dangerous solution to move goods. So rethinking how we could move things around, goods and people, into rehashing and reshaping what was a very tangible solution through either a smart use of a blimp, or throughout the emphasis of the industry of the water plane. And I don't know how many of you have been familiar with this very progressive Russian invention. Was the chronoplane. The chronoplane is a water plane that never takes off, but glides over the water a few meters above its surface, and it allows the transportation of people and passengers in creating this hovercraft ground effect. And we have this huge like airplane like that glides across the seas. It was the Caspian Seas was one of the first things that was invented to was promoted to. There's a chronoplane to move military troops around rather than take the rail routes. So there are viable alternatives. The problem is that it's the integration newer solution for efficient and sustainable fuel costs. There are many things that we said. There are many things that are being worked on. Now, it's all about addressing the investments and pointing them towards what it could be a feasible solution. We can focus on small things that already exist. In my opinion, the blimp is a valuable solution. We can reshape it. We don't have to build it like a sausage. It can take many different shapes. It can take passengers. We can build it as valuable cruise of the sky. So the options are on the table. It is all about if you can truly have it delivered, and if you can truly find like a way to have investment done, governments and both by private investor. So I think, in my opinion, we have to give it a shot, and I'm sure that it is a valuable solution for the best for the future.